Welcome back to Jalen Bio. Today's module is on the fluids, electrolytes, and water balance. The majority of the human body is water. Optimal health requires both fluid and electrolyte balance, which is the state of maintaining homeostatic levels of body fluids and normal body levels of ions. The human body is composed of average of 65% fluid by weight, and this can vary depending on age and the ratio of adipose to skeletal muscle. For example, in an infant, it could get up to as high as 75% of body fluid. So let's talk a little bit about the fluid compartments. The fluid body is either in the ICF, intracellular fluid, within our cells, or ECF, extracellular fluid, outside of our cells, with 2/3 being the ICF and 1/3 being the ECF. The intracellular fluid includes the interstitial fluid, the 2/3 of fluid that surrounds the cells, the blood plasma, and 1/3 of the body within the blood vessels. So in the total body, you have 42 liters. That's divided into the ICF, about 28 liters, and then ECF, we have 14 liters. Many systems influence fluid balance, including digestive system, cardiovascular, lymphatic, integumentary, respiratory, urinary, nervous, and endocrine. Here's a snapshot of the fluid pool and the solid profiles. In the ICF, the water, electrolytes, and small molecules, as well as non-electrolyte proteins are found. 20% to 30% protein with a pH of ideally about 7, and the most highest amount of ion is going to be potassium. On the ECF, there's far less protein and also electrolytes, and the pH is about 7.4, and then the sodium is much more common. You can see in the graph, it shows you what are the ions that are higher in the ICF versus the interstitial fluid in plasma. Just keep in mind that the yellow and the red color indicates ECF. Sodium is a lot higher on the outside, potassium is a lot higher on the inside. Notice that HPO4- phosphates and magnesium and proteins are much higher on the inside, whereas the bicarbonate is much higher on the outside. Thirst is not an accurate measurement of water need. Thirst is a sensation that's generated by exercise, eating certain kinds of salty foods, and dry mouth. A rough change in about 1 to 2% increase in osmolarity, which is the amount of solids per liter, between 0.29 to 0.295, will cause your body to have a thirsty sensation. This could be also indicated by blood loss as well as releasing of a hormone called antidiuretic hormone. Thirst is then quenched as soon as water comes into contact with the osmolar receptors in our cheek. So when you drink water or fluids, this will cause a change to the receptors and therefore send a signal that you have begun to take in water. Fluid output constitutes loss of water from the body due to breathing, sweating, cutaneous transpiration, defecation, and urination. The amount of water loss depends on your physical activity. So we have the sensible water loss, which is measured and calculated based on the urine and feces, whereas insensible water loss is not able to be measured. This is including the sweat, the air, and the loss through cutaneous transpiration. The kidneys lose water in about 60%, sweat about 8%, lungs about 28%, and feces about 4%. And you can see in this chart, based on the activity and exercise, and also temperature, the changes to the body's loss percentage. Let's remember that the only physiological mechanism to control fluid output is through the hormonal control of the urine output. Fluid imbalances can change the osmolarity. Dehydration, not due to isotonic fluid imbalance, results from profuse sweating. Diseases like diabetes mellitus, as well as even hyposecretion of ADH. This will then cause an increase in water loss without an increase in solute loss. This can be problematic. Some of the clinical symptoms include sticky oral mucosa, dry flushed skin, reduced urine formation, thirst, weight loss, fever, and even death. Let's talk about several different types of conditions that could occur. A condition often seen in athletes occurring when there is overconsumption of plain water followed by excess sweating or hypersecretion of ADH is also known as hypotonic hydration or water intoxication. This is pretty rare. This is when you ingest too much water, causes a decrease in the fluid pool osmolarity, and that can lead to CNS dysfunction. In an extreme case of hypotonic hydration, this can even cause the cerebral edema and fluid accumulation in the brains because of swelling. The second type of condition is called hypovolemia. This is when you have a loss of blood plasma volume due to loss of water and solutes. So when you have diabetes, burns, wounds, diarrhea, vomiting, this can result in that. And last but not least is that we have hypervolemia. This is when you have too much blood volume that leads to renal or kidney failure. It should be noted that infants and elderly are much more vulnerable to dehydration than young and middle-aged individuals. There are numerous reasons why there's an increased vulnerability for infants because of surface area, because higher metabolic rate, but also infants don't really have a fully developed homeostatic mechanism for temperature regulation. On the other side, as you get older, the elderly are also subject to dehydration due to several reasons. This includes loss of skeletal muscle mass, which results in less body water, less effective ability for the kidneys to concentrate urine. And additionally, elderly also have less effective third mechanisms and a higher chance of hyperglycemia. This will then cause them to have more output of urine, therefore water loss. The fluid pools are interconnected. The fluid constantly moves between pools in response to changes in the pressure and osmotic gradients via those unique water channels called aquaporin channels. These are expressed on different kinds of cells. A change in the osmolarity of any pool means that the osmolarity of the pools also changes as well.